Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Neo the Greatest Masterclass. And I'm very excited and pumped to share some concepts that will level up your creative success, will level up your growth and your trajectory just by understanding the principles of life. I believe that God has created us with principles and with laws, the laws of physics, the laws of nature. And these laws of physics, they're really amazing, by the way. Think of the law of gravity, the law of thermodynamics. And I believe that these laws not only govern and control the natural world, but they actually also control the physical or our world as well, the social or the spiritual world as well. And so today we'll be looking at Newton's laws of motion. And the reason why I call these master classes, if I haven't explained before, is because it's not because I am a master or I am an expertise or an expert on these things, but it's because I know who is. I know the expert. And so I have that confidence and that clarity to communicate these truths because I am looking at the creator of all creators. In fact, I just authored a book. It's How to Create Like God Does, God's Success Blueprint for All Creators. And so if you like to know how to create like God does, I recommend you check it out. It will change your life for the rest of your life. So Newton was an amazing guy, and I'm using the NASA website here, nasa.government. Yeah, right. You have to work with the government, right? All right, here it says, Isaac Newton's laws of motion explain the relationship between a physical object. Now remember, although they are speaking about a physical object, we want to graduate from physics and go into the realm of the spirit and into the realm of the social, into the realm of the human, right? Right. So it is a relationship between a physical object and the forces acting upon it. That's fine. Understanding this information provides us with the basis of modern day physics. Can you imagine the basics of modern day physics is based upon these principles? Meaning these principles form the foundation of our world, which is why I extrapolate further to say that these principles also must then form the foundation of our education, of our thinking, and of our success. Okay, what are these laws that Newton was so known for and that he observed? Which is another very important thing. Newton did not conjure up these ideas or these laws. He observed them, meaning these laws had already been in existence before Isaac was even born. And this points us to someone bigger than Isaac Newton, someone that precedes Isaac, and that's God himself. Because in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void. And then he outlined all these laws of physics that we are talking about. Okay, what is law number one? Well, the first law says an object. Now, where we have object, you can put subject, meaning you, meaning person, because we are more interested in the person than the material. In fact, you could say a person, a situation, a circumstance, a life that is at rest, meaning stationary. Or one could also say stagnant. One could also add to say immobile, stuck, broke, broken, ready to choke. And then it says remains at rest. So an object at rest remains there. So wherever you are is where you are and you remain there. Okay, that sounds obvious. But the second part is very important. And it says, and then an object in motion remains in motion. So we're going to equate motion with success. You know, things are going well for you. Okay. So if you are stuck, if you are tired, if you are broke, you will forever remain that. And if you are succeeding, if you're doing well, you will also remain like that. At a constant speed, you know, you get what you sow. You reap what you sow. It says, and in a straight line, in the natural progression and trajectory of where you aimed at. That's where you go. Unless acted on by an unbalanced force. Now, this is very important because it's not just force, because to be honest, for you to be where you are also requires force. And that's why I love here that they clarify to say, unless acted upon by an unbalanced, meaning it's a force that is moving in a different direction. It's a force that has different power. It's a force with intent. And I believe we'll be talking about this in the next or in a future masterclass, where I talk about the difference between vector quantities and scalar quantities. Some quantities, they have magnitude but no direction. And that's typical of most of us. We have so much force and so much power. Like, I want to do this, but we have no direction. We have to be vector quantities, vector people who not only have magnitude, but have a direction of where we're going, have a purpose in life of what we are doing. Okay, so that's Newton's first law of motion. And this first law is very applicable in many instances, primarily to say that you will be where you are if you don't change anything. If nothing changes, you will continue to be who you are, because who you are is a product of the forces that you've allowed to be applied to you. And so those forces have either kept you in motion or they have kept you stuck. What's funny is it all takes force. It takes force to stay in one place. What force does it take? Gravitational force. It takes gravity to keep this here. It takes gravity to keep me here. And then it takes another force that pushes me the other way. And so this is very important to understand that, we have that inertia in all of us, that we have that tendency, right, to remain where we are, to continue to be who we've been. And so we need an external force that comes to change that. Very important. Okay, if this is making sense so far, let me know in the comments. And if it's not, be honest as well. I love to hear your feedback. Law number 2, the acceleration of an object. What is acceleration? Okay, so acceleration, it's increasing speed, gaining momentum, gathering speed, opening up. But I would like to get a more scientific definition. Increasing speed that is perhaps not just incremental, but in some instances even exponential. It doesn't matter how it increases. The idea of acceleration is you're moving at this speed and then you increase the speed and then you increase the speed. You accelerate. So what are they saying? And by the way, while we're still on acceleration, I'd like to submit to you that God's goal for our lives is to accelerate. There's a principle I talk about in the book. I didn't really bring the concept of acceleration, but I did bring the idea of multiplication, that we are created to multiply. Things in nature, they multiply and they grow not by addition, but by multiplication. God says, be fruitful and multiply. In other words, accelerate. Whatever it is you're doing, accelerate. God loves to see that acceleration. Anyways, the acceleration of an object depends on the mass of an object. Okay. And the amount of force applied. Interesting. So how fast you go, I guess this is very obvious, depends, or not how fast you go, how fast you can accelerate depends on your mass. It depends on your mass. And what is mass? Mass is a coherent, typically large body of matter with no definite shape. So in other words, mass is matter. And this is very powerful. So acceleration depends on matter. Acceleration, I repeat, depends on matter. And when it comes to matter, I don't think here it's a question of how heavy.
According to Wikipedia, mass is an intrinsic property of a body. It was traditionally believed to be related to the quantity of matter in a physical body until the discovery of the atom and particle physics. It was found that different atoms and different elementary particles, theoretically with the same amount of matter, have nonetheless different masses.
Okay, so mass is interesting at many levels. Number one, it's inherent. It's the inside of something. It's what it has. It's its makeup, you know. And then when we apply this to us as creators, we see that how far we are going to go in life, how fast we're going to get to our goal is dependent on our mass. And if you were to define your mass is your matter. Mass is what makes you up. Mass is really what matters to you, if you like to put it that way. I do touch upon that as well in the book here. I speak about the 3 principles. I think we'll cover this in another masterclass. I think I've already done that. The 3 principles that God uses or used to keep his people sane. At the beginning of time, God created time, space, and matter. Time, space, and matter. And these things are very important. You know, time answers the question, when have you been called to serve? Is this the right time for you to do what you're doing? And then space answers the question, where have you been called to serve? And to whom exactly have you been called to serve? And then number 3 is matter. And matter is really big because matter is almost unique from everything else, because matter answers the question, what do you bring to the table? What do you have? What reasons do you have? What is your why? What tangible product do you have or solution that you have? And so what you have will determine how further you go. And what makes you up will determine how far you go. And this is true in all elements of nature because, you know, of course, different elements have different masses, different acceleration levels and all that. But this is really powerful. And so maybe a better question is, what type of mass then should we have as creators to accelerate us faster? Okay. Now, we've already seen that the idea of mass is not about weight. It's not about how heavy it is, but it's about the type of the content that it is. And so the content really matters more than the context or how much or the quantity. The quality is what we are looking for. And for any creative success, the main mass, the main matter that you should have is really to solve a problem. To solve a problem is one thing. But even more than that, it's not just to solve a problem, but really the purpose. The purpose is what drives you. A purpose that aligns with God's design. That will take you far, my friend. And so we have that acceleration is equal to the force that applies on you. Where does this force come from? In many ways, in many levels, forces are both heavenly and earthly times what you got, times the mass. And that determines how fast you go, how fast you grow. Powerful stuff. Now, as we close, the 3rd law of motion. Whenever one object exerts a force on an object, the second object exerts an equal and opposite on the first. And I would like to call this the law of reaction. Now, I know they've already given it names, but I'd like to call it the law of reaction, especially as we apply it now to the human social economic space. This is a very powerful principle and law because it applies at all levels of life, really. You know, if you think of this in a relationship context where you have one person and the other, you know, whatever you do to someone comes back to you somehow. And so that leads to the law of reciprocity, meaning if I love you, all things considered, if I love you, there's a high chance that you love me back. If I hate you, you hate me back because of that law of reciprocity and reaction. Now, when you know this, of course, then you have to know how you treat people. You have to know that what you sow what you sow is exactly what you reap. In a context of succeeding and getting to where you want to get in life, what you put in is what you get out. God says God is not mocked. What you sow is what you reap, because of this law of reciprocity, the law of reaction. So be aware of that. Make sure that whatever you put in is exactly what you will get out. There's no way around it. There's no shortcuts. It's the input will produce the output. Because when you push a wall, the wall pushes back. It's just how it works. All right. So, and we could go deeper into how this translates into the principle of giving and receiving, but we'll talk about that later. So here it says, Sir Isaac Newton worked in many areas of mathematics and physics. He developed the theories of gravitation in 1666 when he was only 23 years old. Imagine, at a very young age, Isaac was into this. And I would like to encourage young people to not wait for high school or whatever, the high school or post-secondary or whatever you call it, university or college. No, start right now. Apply your mind to the principles, to observation. Really, that's what he did. He observed these things. In 1686, he presented his 3 laws of motion in Principia Mathematica Philosophiae Naturalis. And then he says, by developing his 3 laws of motion, Newton revolutionized science. Newton's laws, together with Kepler's laws, explained why planets move in elliptical orbits rather than in circles. And why was that? Because that's how it was set up. And if something is set up, it continues to go like that unless something disturbs it. That'll be my explanation. Okay, forget about that. Moving on. So let's just do some recap here. I know I've taken so much of your time, but if you're getting value, let me know by hitting that thumbs up button and also comment your thoughts and what you're thinking.